Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis, which is truth, and you're only going to find it here. Isn't that sad? Here's another prime example of lies, deceit, and really have to get down to a point of that. You have to wonder if these people aren't paid disinformation agents. People who claim they're researchers, they're scientists, etc., and they know so much because they've read so much and they're in the industry to whatever. And point in note is Penn Jillette. And Penn Jillette, who's on the Lawrence Krauss show. And Lawrence Krauss is a noted physicist. How many years did you go through bogus school to learn your stupid science, Krauss? But of course, so old little Lawrence here, who is steeped in stupid mysticism, ignorant thought, and whatever else you can think of to categorize people who are basically incompetent frauds. And we're going to go into that right away. We're going to talk about and listen to the exact what's going on here. So let's get this and I'll stop.
I know. I'm Canadian, as a matter of fact.
Mind reader, supposedly.
That was
and
Kruskin.
He came out with a show that he would do. He didn't do it on Carson because Carson hated him. But there was some show he did where he came.
Now, we didn't get very far here. We've had within the first, was that a minute? Old Lawrence here, baby, came out with, he's a Canadian, and he came out talking about Kruskin, saying that Kruskin was a Canadian. Give him a AAA for research. What schoolie did you go to, Krauss? Was that Harvard, MIT, Caltech? Maybe you were too close to Caltech and taking their little herbs and mushrooms and ayahuasca. You know, all the stuff that makes your mind explode with stupidity. So as we have to understand here, is that it's appalling. The same thing happened with Sean Carroll, who recently came out against Donald Trump, and you don't have to be his fan or buddy. I think he's the best option for the horrible times we're in, but that is unimportant. He claimed that he was against Trump and then listed a whole bunch of false charges that were made against him, verifying the fact that he thought they were true. Nice researchy, Caltechy boy. So the whole idea is he doesn't know how to do research. Neither does Lawrence here, baby. Lawrence Krauss, who obviously doesn't know how to do research either, even though this is really the mainstay of science, in particularly theoretical physicists, is research. And they don't know how to do any of that. And they haven't done it, and they haven't taken the time. Kruskin is not a Canadian, never has been, and never will be unless he can reincarnate somewhere over the border. So the whole idea, born in Jersey as a Polish Italian that went to a Catholic university, is exactly, he never was there. Now, he did have, for a period, I believe it was 3 years, have a TV show based out of Canada. Because you really couldn't get a regular show out of the United States, because even back in the late 60s and 70s, whenever that went on, people still were not that much into it. But he was able, for some reason, based in Canada, to get some pretty amazing movie stars and psychics, etc. there. People like Robert Vaughn, who else was there? You name it. They had all these celebrities, Sybil Leek, the witch, all sorts of people, and even scientists, etc. So it is a good little show, but Kruskin, of course, comes out with his usual Christian prejudice, and he puts down everything, including stating that he in no way wants to perpetrate alternative thinking or occultism. So to think that Kruskin is some little gooby guy is ridiculous. He's always come out against any kind of mysticism, and he always has stated that he was not a psychic. He's a mentalist or a, quote, mind reader, whatever that means. Basically, he's a mentalist, which is a con game done by basically theatrical magicians to trick you. There's nothing psychic about it. They use all sorts of gimmicks and other things, Confederates and other people that they work with to gain their information from you. You can learn all this stuff pretty much online for free, or you can buy a little book for a few dollars, or you can go to a magic store and get all the information cheap. So it's, they try and hide, magicians, that there's some secrets here. They're not secrets. You can get any trick that's done out there by any magician. You can find it in print or buy it if you want to have it. There's a small group of people that are into theatrical magic, and shops and books have to be sold to the masses. Nobody seems to do that. They think it's secret, or I have to be a special person to read a magic book. They think all this stuff, which is not. I've trained myself in magic, have many different tricks, etc. I know what they're doing, and I train myself so I can watch someone that wants to try and con me. What are you doing? How are you handling something? All these things are what they do right in front of you, and they distract you a little bit. And of course, you're not expecting it. And you don't know what to look for. You're not going to do that to me, Penny baby. I'm going to know exactly what you're doing. You and your little freaky buddy, the unamazing dead Randy, who was known for his, was convicted of crimes, and also was found out to be rigging stuff and lying. This is a fact that has been verified. So the whole idea is that we have to understand that. So right off the bat, within how long? Can I get a little, what does it say here? It's been running 15 seconds. Within 15 seconds, your noted physicist has made an act. Kreskin is not Canadian, never has been. He had a show up there. I don't know if he lived there during that show or not, but the bottom line, he is not a Canadian. He thinks he is. Pretty sad. You can't get some basic facts about a person that you want to speak about, and on top of it, you're a Canadian. Why don't you know who other Canadians actually are? A lot of people don't know William Shatner is a Canadian and a Canadian citizen. He never became an American. He just likes American money. So the whole idea, as all these guys do. So this bogusly trained imbecile who wants to tell us how the world works through theoretical physics, is again wrong. So right off the bat, he's wrong. The other thing we have here wrong is the fact that of Penn describing Kreskin as a scientist and putting on a demonstration. He's never described himself as that. The use of his game and everything else, there were no instructions to gain information directly. He was teaching you on how to use ESP, extrasensory perception, to gain information through a very well put together ESP. I don't even call it a game. It's kind of insulting. It's an ESP kit that was designed by parapsychologists. This kit was sold all over the world under different names. I don't think Kreskin, the Christian Polish Italian, had anything to do with it. Penn also states here that Kreskin was hated by Johnny Carson, and that Johnny Carson never put him on. Where does this information come from, Penn? Did you get that in your little dungeon where you practice your S&M, or when you were 300 pounds from eating 2 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts that just came out of the oven? All the stuff that you couldn't figure out why you were so sick and overweight? This is the kind of mentality you're dealing with. And these are the kind of things these are plain and simple fabrications. These are lies. You can punch into the Googlies. How many times was Christian on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson? And it comes back that it's 88 times. What did you not get of that, Penny baby? These are people, these dumb bunkers, and I pronounced that correctly, dumb bunkers, because they're dumb, really have to be exposed for what they are. They are shills for corporations to make sure that there's no advancement in human consciousness that can change the world away from dominating science controlled by corporations, which he's involved with, and the reality is out there. That's the reality. He is not a researcher. He's known nothing about the field, a field that has been researched for 150 years, which has proven without a shadow of a doubt that all of these, quote, biophysical / psychic abilities are real to a scientific level. You don't know that. You don't believe that because people like him come out and flap their diarrhea mouth and give you plain and simple disinformation that is so bad that it can't be anything more than a lie. You haven't looked up. Johnny Carson may have, after a while, didn't like Kreskin. Kreskin kind of had a weird personality. Point is, he was on the show 88 times. He did move over to someone he felt was a little better in later years, the unamazing Randy, who he worked with to set up Uri Geller. That's what Johnny Carson did. Johnny Carson started out in show business as a magician. So he thought he was a genius, not to mention the kind of lowlife that Johnny Carson was in general, and tried to set up Uri Geller and do all sorts of other things. He also donated hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to the unamazing Randy's institution of fools, their dumbademia, their goo-goo system of thinking as an imbecile child would think. It's goo-goo. And people should understand that as well. So let's move on to more of the babbling boob, the diarrhea mouth that Penn, Jillette and his devious ways are about. And obviously, this is because of the fact that his parents were boobs.
Mind reading ability and talked about the science of this. At that time, the best I can figure from when the game was released and so on, and going back and doing a little bit of forensics, I was probably 13.
Okay.
He came out with that.
A stupid 13. You didn't add that, Penn.
Crazy.
You were dumb as a rock. Daddy was a jailer.
I love science, and that was going to be my life. And I watched him do this scientific experiment as he presented it on TV. And he
more of your typical police moron. He built his house to look like a prison.
The idiomatic movements and the ESP cards. And my parents, my dad was a jail guard. I had a wonderful relation with my parents.
He said warden years ago. Sure. Now he's just a jail guard.
This was science. So I could buy this ESP.
And he thought it was so wonderful he built the house to look like a jail.
Much older than me.
Because he's a libertarian.
She was 23 when I was born. Wow. So I was raised essentially as an only child with my sister living in town. So my mom and dad every night would run through this stupid ESP kit.
Which means you were a mistake, obviously. The birth control didn't work, and what came out was a retard.
With me. And I kept all the records and kept everything carefully and did all the graphs and all the science. And then as luck would have it, I was very into juggling. The juggling section of the library, if you remember your Dewey Decimal System, is...
it's ingrained.
Very, very close to religion.
By the way, I have that game, and I've shown it many times, and it's a fantastic kit designed by, obviously, a professional parapsychologist. And there are no charts and things that you go through. There are registering whether you're correct on a particular area that you mark down correct or non-correct. There is no tests you go through per se, except on how to use these different things and how to use pendulums, etc. How to, and what you're doing is marking down the amount of correct scores. And apparently his parents, well, of course, we can understand what his background is coming from and what kind of mentality that his family has, didn't understand that this is not a classical yes and no science. Very few are, but people confuse science with engineering. Engineering is a yes and no. Well, this metal bar will hold 15 pounds. That is engineering. So you use that in a place where you don't need more than 15 pounds of support. Science is to figure out more generalities, and it's quite different. Engineers are not scientists. Engineers have to take the crap the scientists give them and try and make them work. And this is the reality of it. So obviously his parents were so stupid and ignorant that they didn't understand that this was all about intuition. And while I believe that these are, quote, the occult sciences or metaphysics, they're never considered to be a scientist, and Kreskin never called himself that. He did go over in different areas what it was about and wrote many books. about different subjects, but his books were all about doing magic tricks in the end. He has a DVD out there, Become a Kreskin, and what he showed you were not mental techniques, they were tricks. How to move a table by taping 1-foot rulers to your palms, and then where you couldn't see them, and then you would put your hands on the table, but the rulers would be underneath, and you can move the table, and of course your hands aren't moving. How are you doing that? I've been trained by the scum that want to make millions of dollars. And by the way, Penn, you're worth 150 million, along with your little silent moron brat. And you continue to go out there and steal money from people with the illusion that something is really going on, even though you don't claim that because you're an honest liar and cheat.
All of them, the 900s.
Yeah.
And juggling is near the magic, right? So
I remember that.
I saw a book by Dunninger, and just kind of thumbing through it, and the tricks started to look similar to what Kreskin had done as ESP. And I finally looked through and found the trick.
And again, that's wrong. There are no tricks done by magicians that are the same that parapsychologists do to test people. They're not the same whatsoever. Now, these con artists, these tricksters that wanted to catch on to a fad that was going on, and of course, Kreskin was one of those. There was the huge psychic ESP craze that went on. The fact that Parker Brothers, which is now part of Hasbro, would actually make a game or a toolkit about this is in itself amazing, to think that there is that many people out there interested in it. And they seem to be everywhere, so they must have sold by the tens of thousands. God knows how many of these actually sold, but we certainly can say that thousands and thousands of these sold, because back then everything was ESP. It was very popular. So what do you do as a liar and a cheat? Well, you do like Kreskin did, and you talk about ESP. Nobody wanted to listen to his brand of goo-goo to talk about how things don't work. So the point is, there was a great interest in it. Everybody was involved with it. There are thousands of books in that particular era, from the mid-60s up to the 80s and even beyond, which are printed about ESP, the tests that were done, the results done, how to train yourself in this, etc. And it's been demonstrated by people who are not frauds and been proven to be real. Secondly, anybody can copy anything. You can gold plate something and say, well, this is solid gold. Look at it. See that? And you can test the plate, and the plate will come out as pure gold. That doesn't mean you reproduce that. Secondly, just because you copy something, and we all know what knockoffs and bootlegs are, and they're always inferior to the original. But that didn't stop anybody from making it. So these are the kind of lies and deceits that the dumb bunker crowd has been doing for years, and they twist everything. And the reason they twist it is because they're wrong, and they don't have any evidence to the contrary. But they want to come out and publicize that for their own personal benefit. It's as simple as that. It's all for their own personal greed. All the theatrical magicians seem to come from the same mold, believing. And of course, I've talked to some of these off the record, and they generally believe in that. And there are, but it's not. But they keep to the same reality, saying how it's all a fake, even though we have 150 years of research proving all of these areas. And if we had enough money, particularly money from you, Penn, with your 150 million, we could prove all of this, and mankind can move to another level where we can get things done past the chemical, physical reality that has been holding back mankind for years. The fact is people have been healing each other, and we can go back to the person I quote so often, William Bankston, who is a noted dumbademia guy who for 30 years has been curing people of cancer and has verified it. You want to look at that, Penn? Oh no, I got to go down in my dungeon and whip somebody. I got to talk to my retard high school Latin teacher friend. So the point is that all of that is what they want to BS you with and lie to you, because it gets to a point where this isn't just misinformation. He has refused to even get correct so that he can, another way to put Kreskin down. I'm not, as I said, I'm not sure why he was against Kreskin, who came out as a magician most of his life and never stated that he was doing anything, quote, mystical or occult. He came out with some vague ESP stuff so that he could bring in a certain crowd and do it. But he was a radical Christian that believed in nothing mystical. He deliberately, to make Kreskin look bad, because most people don't know who Johnny Carson was. He was a little nasty guy in general. You can find that out as well. And not a very well-liked guy, but certainly was anti anything that was mystical, being a magician, of course. So, the minute you join the magician school, your IQ goes down to your shoe size. So we have to, to discredit Kreskin, he went and stated, because people think Carson, everybody liked him. I mean, you got to remember, Johnny Carson was a fantastic star. Millions of people watched him every night, particularly when you get back into the 70s, 80s, and even, I guess, 90s, depending on when he retired. I mean, this was the #1 show. Everybody went on it, and it was a sensation. It was noted that after Johnny Carson's dialogue, that in many places you could see that the water levels went up because flow went up because people went to the bathroom after that and flushed the toilet. I mean, this is the kind of watching that. Johnny Carson was the show to be on back then, particularly for adults. And even though it was on late, it was a show that was everybody wanted to be on, and made and broke a lot of careers. So being the Johnny Carson everybody loves, he wanted to show that, if you liked Kreskin or believed Kreskin, then you hate Johnny Carson. So the point is, I don't know what Johnny Carson's ultimate opinion is, but he dropped a lot of people. He also didn't want to put impersonators on after that. But what he did is moved away from Kreskin, and he moved into the unamazing Randy later in it. But to say that he didn't at least profit from Kreskin when he was on the Carson show 88 times. This is a matter of record. It is not anything I'm making up. You Googly it, plain and simple. So what he's doing there, in a very disingenuous way, is to attack Kreskin indirectly by the fact of stating that he was a jerk. After all, Johnny Carson thought he was and didn't put him on his show or anything else. That, plain and simple, is complete fabrication. And it is, again, it's not something that I am making. Look it up. I tell everybody, go out and look it up. I don't make statements that third parties haven't verified in general. Almost everything I talk about is on the record somewhere by some noted person. But here we go again. This guy is a nobody. He's nothing more than a high school dropout. Of course, he changes that all the time. But apparently he was a high school dropout who, for some reason or another, was a juggler. And being a juggler, apparently these street magicians, these performers, make a fortune. And he talks about that as well in other interviews. Pierce Brosnan, one of the recent James Bond, ran a whole business with that and made a fortune. Apparently, there's tens of thousands of dollars you can make daily street performing. You go to a big area, those quarters add up into thousands and thousands of dollars, even in single performances, and during a week or so add up to a lot of money. And I've heard this from a lot of people. Kind of interesting. So don't discourage your kids from juggling, from playing music or anything else. Have them put on an act, find a place where they can do their thing, and they're going to make a lot of money. This is fascinating and a sidebar that everybody should kind of think about. But here we go. This is complete, easily found out information from a so-called researcher, a physicist, who doesn't even know where Kreskin comes from. And there is no place on the web that I can find anybody who's ever stated that Kreskin, who was born in New Jersey, educated there, and died there, by the way, was ever in Canada other than to film his show. He was not a resident. He didn't do anything there other than film his show, which apparently was done inexpensively, as Canada has always been the Tijuana of America, where you go to get things done cheaper because the Canadian dollar is not worth that much. And they still have a lot of productions up there. But the genius, the guy is going to tell you about how the world works and how the intricacies of science work. Of course, I guess that's why we don't have any free energy. We don't have any cures, because they don't even know the basics. And of course, Penn is deliberately fouling anybody he can with what are basic total disinformation, which I can only label as lies, because why would you say something like that that can be so easily confirmed? So he's deliberately doing this as a psychological technique to discredit Kreskin, who's really discredited himself. And I don't know why he hasn't grown up there either, but apparently he still thinks this is the Kreskin of the 60s, who had ESP newsletters and other things, who played it, quote, more scientific. But it was far from scientific, and Kreskin never said he was a scientist, period. Let's go on to the babbling boob, the diarrhea mouth of Penn Jillette.
My reaction was so inappropriate.
You had an inappropriate reaction? I can't believe it.
I was heartbroken. I was destroyed.
Yeah.
The fact that a scientist,
Yeah.
now putting this in my terms for
Yeah,
them,
sure. Yeah.
the fact that a scientist went on TV and lied to me, inconsolable, and embarrassed in front of my parents. Mom and Dad, I was making you do this, and it was all stupid, it was all jive. And I went from, and this is absolutely true, from straight A's in science to flunking. Wow. To being directly to my science teacher, I want nothing to do with you people, you lie to people.
Wow.
And my entire school career changed there. And I went from a straight A student to flunking the rest. That was...
I mean, this would be comical if it wasn't so stupid. He considered the entire field of science to be something that is based in the use of ESP, extra sensory perception. Where's the science in there? It's extra perception. And there certainly was lots of research done and proof that this is something that is very valid. And apparently his parents are the dumbest level. Well, of course, this is why you can never trust anybody. This is why society never gets ahead, because people like him have parents that are as dumb as garbage on the floor. And I hate to insult garbage on the floor. But they didn't understand what anything of this was about. And of course, while they didn't have the internet back then, they had little things where I hung out in for hours and hours. They were called the Big L. Yeah, it's under the Big L. Library. So the whole idea is that you would go there. Almost every American family had an encyclopedia in it, which were certainly well put together, and the information was good. And people would spend hundreds of dollars on these and get upgrades and everything else of them. Additional volumes every year would come out that you could add in as well. And every legitimate family had encyclopedias. And you could also go to your local library and check out the information, etc. So apparently his parents were as dumb as mud. And of course, you can see that from this guy. He has no analytical abilities. He can't think properly. Neither does his little mute buddy, the Latin teacher. Yeah, Penn, let's get some up-to-date information. Everybody should speak Latin. Who's really an arrogant guy who claims that, well, I studied law too. Yeah, we really need a guy like you in law. So the whole idea is these guys are super wealthy from tricking the public with basically a bunch of stunts that, of course, they look good. But if you know what's going on, the magic is taken away, the interestingness of, and God knows what they charge, $150, $250 for a ticket, certainly ain't worth it, as it is with all these things. I mean, the latest is Criss Angel, and the bottom line is that all these people are making money off of tricking you, because it's all about that. Just like, would you want to go see a fake psychic? Oh yeah, let's go down to Criss Angel. He's a fake psychic. Well, I don't want to see a fake psychic. Well, he's going to tell me stuff I know is fake. Next. Who else is there? Madonna? So this is exactly what goes on, which is the reason why. Now, it's interesting. I never really thought about that, but actually a magician who I had some contact with said that. Well, who wants to go see a fake psychic? So you're going to have an audience of nobodies. Yeah, I tricked you. It's all fake. Well, that takes the fun out of it. So the whole idea is that's not how it works. So the bottom line is they all live in this realm between mysticism and this is just an act. And they make sure they play down this is just an act. And so does Penn, Jillette. So all of this, they're trying to insinuate that there's something going on beyond just this stage act. And really, once you understand this, the interest in going to magic shows is not very. I've been to several. They're kind of fun initially, and it is amazing. But you got to remember that it's so easy. The hand is quicker than the eye is an old saying. It's so easy to trick you with all the different props they have, with all the people they have in the audience that are their dupes, their stooges. All of these things can be done very easily, and it's kind of a fun show in its own way. But if you go out of there thinking that this is real occult magic, then you're missing the point. And the problem with that is that since generally metaphysics and the occult sciences delve into realms of fantastic power that we still don't fully understand, we are a people that are losing it. We have no science. We have no free energy. We have no cures. We have science for nothing but goofy little picture phones that do nothing. And AI can make up all the stuff they want, the trash that AI puts out, and it helps you because you don't have to learn a skill now. Ask the AI monkey bow robot to do it for you. This is going to create the largest reference library of garbage that's ever been created, and unfortunately probably what will be left in another 50 to 100 years. None of the well done stuff by professionals because it costs money and takes time and training. No, we're going to have a bunch of put together crap that looks good and sounds good. If you looked at my recent reviews of AI books, they are gutless, heartless wonders. Just nothing there. So let's move on here because this is going to turn into long. I think this is going to require a couple of parts. So we'll end right now, the end of part 1, and we'll pick up on part 2 next.